It is March, which clearly means it is time to talk about the next school year. Hey, Sarah here from Homeschool Glue. I'm so excited to be back with another homeschool curriculum related video. I love these. I find them very helpful myself, and so I thought, why not share the help, share the love, and make one for myself. I recently posted my mid-year review on what we are currently using for this school year with my 4th grader and my 1st grader, and then my preschooler, my brand new baby, which aren't really doing a whole lot at home, but for dedicated curriculum anyway. But I am now going to be talking about what I'm doing next year for my 5th grader and my 2nd grader and my 2nd year preschooler and my baby, because he'll be there for the ride. So buckle up, let's get into it. So if you watched my last video, you kind of know where I'm coming at this with my thoughts about what we did this past year. We used the Peaceful Press for the 2nd year in a row, and I love family style, so keep that in mind. A lot of our subjects are family style, but I wanted something a little bit more rigorous, something that could grow with us over time. And I'm really excited to finally share what we're using this year. I have spent months researching. I was almost about to jump full in on Ambleside Online, but I couldn't do it. And I am not bashing Ambleside at all. I think it's an amazing resource and guide for families who follow a Charlotte Mason methodology for their homeschool, which we very much do. However, I felt like I wanted something with a little bit more guidance on, like, do this now and then do this, because I'm juggling a lot, working and homeschooling, and I also just really love learning as a family, which Ambleside doesn't do unless you can like group your kids, which my kids are kind of too far apart to really do that using the AO model. However, you will see I am still using Ambleside Online options for a couple subjects, so keep that in mind. I'm not saying I will never do Ambleside Online as like our main curriculum, but I just love learning as a family and kind of doing kind of the one-room schoolhouse model where you're kind of learning the same thing, but you add on extra stuff for the older kids. That's really what I love to do. That way we can all talk about the same subjects. We're doing a lot together, but then my older kids can, you know, go off and learn a little bit more. That's more tailored to their age range, but the core we're kind of learning together. So at least for like the knowledge-based subjects and not the skills-based, which you will see. So I am not using Ambleside as our core curriculum, and I'm not using the Peaceful Press either. While I loved it, I just wanted something that could grow with us and that was a little bit more rigorous. So drum roll please, what we chose for next school year is Simply Charlotte Mason. And I was so surprised to not be able to find much talk of Simply Charlotte Mason here on YouTube. I feel like it's pretty well known. They have a pretty big YouTube channel themselves, and a lot of people in the Charlotte Mason community know about it, but I just feel like there aren't a lot of people sharing about it. And so I think that's kind of why I was hesitant to use it all these years, because I'm like, is nobody using this? However, digging deeper into it, I just fell in love. The way it's laid out, I'm only doing one part of it, I should say that. We're not doing the enrichment studies and we're not doing the individual studies per se, but I will fill you in on those when we get to those. However, for history, Bible, geography, we will be using this. So it's kind of like our main spine for a lot of our learning that we're gonna do as a whole family. And so this is for grades 1 through 12. So you do this as a whole family, but then you add on different readings and things for your older kids. And so I am so excited. I'll show you guys the book stack. So this is our book stack for those subjects, not including the Bible. And this includes like the Book of Centuries as well. But I am so excited about this. I wasn't sure exactly where to start because we have done many years of American history and then we just did European history this year, but I wasn't great about really getting into the history. I just felt kind of all over the place as far as the Peaceful Press with history, and we were reading our island story, but with the baby here, we just kind of fell off of that. But we will revisit European history eventually, but I just decided we've done a good core of American history and we know some European history, but let's kind of start at the beginning. So we just started with the very first one they offer, Genesis through Deuteronomy, and ancient Egypt. So we'll be learning about African geography, Egypt, ancient Egypt specifically, but we are learning all of African geography. And then, you know, we'll be focusing on the beginning books of the Bible, which we actually were already this year, but we'll be reading some different books to go along with that. So I think it will be okay, and it's tied to the geography that we're learning about. So I think that will be really interesting, because I haven't done a whole lot of geographical study as far as the Bible goes with my kids. So I think that'll be really helpful to help them get an even bigger picture of Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy in the Bible, knowing where they're located. So this is a 5-day curriculum. We will be doing it in 4 days, so I have to kind of map out how that will work for us. But basically the way it's laid out, if you're looking at the at a glance calendar, there are family readings you do, and then there are added on readings. Sometimes there isn't a family reading, but sometimes there is. And then there's also additional readings for your specific grade level. So for my 2nd grader, she'll be doing the readings for the grades 1 through 3. And my 5th grader will be doing the readings for grades 4 through 6. And so I will definitely be reading to my 2nd grader. I may also read to my 5th grader. I haven't really decided yet. We'll just kind of see how it goes. But that way we're doing like the core together, but then they're adding on based on their, you know, comprehension levels and things like that. And so there's Bible, there's history, and there's geography. So we have a few Bible resources. We have these 2 commentaries. We have an Exodus commentary for children. I haven't really looked a whole lot in this, but we'll have readings in there. And then we also have a Numbers one by the same author. So those will be what we're looking into. So I'm really excited about those, something different to try out. I did pick up the recommended children's story Bible. We have so many children's story Bibles, but this one was recommended for my 2nd grader, so I bought that. And then this True Story of Noah's Ark was also recommended, so I bought those as well. I tried to get as many, even if they were just optional, but there also are a lot of books, like picture books for my 2nd grader that were optional, but they were all available at our library, so I will just request those when the time comes so we can read those as well. I think a big part of if you're successful with the curriculum, especially if it's a more open and go curriculum, is how it's laid out, and this just works really well with my brain. I love the book list. I love the way the calendar is laid out. The daily guide is really straightforward and easy to follow, so I just really appreciate that. It's minimal as possible, but gives just enough information. And what I really love about this is, like I said, it kind of holds your hand for all of it, but for some of the parts that I needed hand holding, like for example, we have not been good about keeping up with the Book of Centuries, because that would require me to stay on top of it, and I just haven't been great about it. But with this, what I love is it always will tell you if there's something you should add to your Book of Centuries and what day to add it. So that way I know, okay, we need to add that today, so we can be adding to it. I just think that's really helpful. I did pick up their Book of Centuries. I just love how high quality it is, and the layout of it is really nice. It's different than the other ones we've had in the past. So they can actually write things for specific dates, but then we also have any noteworthy like art, music, prominent men and women, events, wars, movements, ideas, developments, discoveries, inventions, authors, poets, and period literature, and then any artifacts they can like draw or write about here. So we can add to this over the years. I think it'll be really helpful to see the overview. I have never been a big geography buff. I'm really bad at it, quite honestly. And so I am excited to have something to hold our hands through it a little bit more. So this is Visits to Africa. I bought one of these workbooks for each of my older children, and then there's some other books that go along with it, but it's pretty straightforward. So there's different visits where you're visiting the country or the continent, and then you'll fill in different countries as you go and build upon that. So hopefully by the end they will really know a lot of the African countries and where they're located. And then there's different readings as well. And these are books I have seen in many different Charlotte Mason curricula options, but I'm excited about these. So there's Material World. So this is something we'll use over the years. It's not just for this year. So I love having things that will carry us through multiple years. So this is kind of like how people live. So kind of more social studies about the geographical location. And then we have Hungry Planet, which also will last a few years. This is about food, which I'm really excited for my kids to kind of experience the different cultures through these books. We also have this Then and Now Bible maps, which we'll use over the years as well. So it'll show an area in the Old Testament, and then it will show at different times. So this is 1020 BC, there's a red overlay, and then you add on the divided kingdom, 900 BC, and then you add in now modern times. So it's just a really cool way to see how different countries and stuff have split and things like that over the years. And then Simply Charlotte Mason also has these really cool, the stuff they left behind for each of their history. So there's different pictures or artifacts and architecture from that location that you will bring out at certain times so they can see it up close and get to know the different places and the different artifacts, which I think is really awesome. And then there are a few history living books as well that we will be reading. Some are just, I'm pretty sure this is like the main one. And then these are the add-ons for my kids depending on their age level. So I'm excited to dig into those together. And then I also picked up the narration note cards. This helps you do narration with your kids. So there's different prompts for first graders through high school. So it just makes it a little easier if your narration is getting a little monotonous. This can kind of mix it up and help you and guide you, which I'm excited about. So that was our first round of family style subjects. Now we're going to talk about the riches. Now Simply Charlotte Mason does offer enrichment studies, which it sounds like they have a really great option for that, but also if you buy everything, it can be really expensive if I'm being honest. And this past school year, we have actually used something that I created and have absolutely loved, which is called Daily Riches. And so this is volume 1, which is available in my shop right now, but I will be working on volume 2, which will be out by the summer, midsummer at the latest. And so if you've already done volume 1, you can get volume 2. If you haven't done volume 1, I would recommend you start there because volume 2 will be adding on to this. So basically what Daily Riches is, it helps you do the riches every day. You're splitting the riches among 4 days a week, and you can do it however you want. I don't have the days labeled. It's just day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, because if you're type A like me and it says like Tuesday and you're doing it on a Thursday, it kind of bothers you. So you have flexibility there. It's a 36-week guide, and I basically made this because I wanted help doing all the riches in not a very long amount of time as a whole family. And it has everything you could possibly need. So I am very excited to make volume 2. We've absolutely loved volume 1. This does include Bible and scripture memory, which we will be doing scripture memory through Awana, which I'll talk about, and then we are doing the Bible to go along with the Simply Charlotte Mason curriculum, but that's not even technically a rich, but I added it in here for families if they're looking for it. It has Bible study, Bible readings, and scripture memory that goes along with the Bible study every day and every week. And so the rotating subjects are the main riches. So we have poetry, a hymn, artist study, a painting, virtue study or virtue reading, folk song, composer study, and then a musical piece you will listen to. So those are, one of those are each done every week. And then there's a weekly handicraft. There's 2 different handicrafts per year. So for this one, it was sewing and paper sloyd. Volume 2 will have different ones. And then there's a student workbook that has 2 days of copy work, one for the poem and one for the scripture verse. So they're practicing that. And then there's also 2 extra pages so they can narrate and draw about the painting or what they learned about the painter that week. And then also for the composer study, if they want to draw something while they're listening, they can do that and then write a little bit about it. And there's QR codes to pull up any video read alouds, any songs, and any musical pieces as well. So very handy. All the poems are in here as well as the student workbooks, and there's living books to go along with it to learn about the poet and the painter and the composer. So they're really learning a lot through this. It's been wonderful. We've absolutely loved that. So that's what we're going to be doing volume 2 for next year for our riches. Also, as a family, we will be continuing with our morning menus. So these are also in my shop if you guys are interested. I will have an updated calendar. If you've already purchased the morning menus, I'll have just a couple dollar add-on for a new calendar. later before the next school year, but later this year. But this one already includes everything. And I might have some add-ons to this over the years as well, but there's lots of added-on pages you can add on already included, but you can add to your different morning menus to fit each age range for your kids. And so these can grow with your kids over time. All of my girls have slightly different ones, but these have worked really well for learning calendar work and spelling, the days of the week and the months, and talking about temperature and weather, feelings. My 10-year-old practices her times tables in here. My preschooler practices her letters and colors and what colors they make. And then my first grader practices our address and how to spell it all, and then our phone numbers, and also spelling the days of the week. So there's lots of ways to mix them up and adapt them to your kids. We're going to continue those again next year as well. Moving on to one of my favorite subjects, which is literature. I'm a former English teacher and I love books and I loved reading with my kids. The past 2 years, our whole curriculum was based on kind of like the literature. So with Peaceful Press this year for Kind Kingdom, we've been reading all the Narnia books, and that's kind of been the spine for European history. And then the year before, we did all or most of the Little House on the Prairie books, and that was kind of our jumping off point for learning about American history. This year, since our spine revolves around Egypt and Africa, we aren't reading a whole lot of like literature. We have some living books that go along with it, but I wanted to add on a separate literature component. And I'm just really excited because this year we're just going to be picking books that I've been wanting to read to my kids and we haven't gotten to. That'll be our literature component. We will just be reading as a family, and then they will narrate what we read, and I'll talk about it in a second, but we will do a weekly illustrated narration, written narration as well. And then my 2 oldest girls also will be doing independent reading. My oldest will probably do half an hour. She usually reads way more than that a day, but that'll be like required of a reading choice that I pick, and then she can read whatever she wants beyond that. And then my second grader will read probably 15-20 minutes a day. She's now starting to be able to read like really early chapter books, so I'm hoping by next school year she'll be able to read those pretty independently and just build her reading skills. So she'll have a list of different books she can choose from as well. But this is where the Ambleside Online list will come in handy. So I will probably be pulling in some choices from here, as well as other places as well, just books I've wanted to read. We are still throwing in some Ambleside Online choices, just in a different way. So that's what we're doing for literature. We also will be doing, this is from Simply Charlotte Mason. We have read beautiful stories from Shakespeare this year, but we will be diving into actually reading the plays and watching a version of them and listening to the audio of them as well. So we're just gonna do one play this year. We're gonna do A Midsummer Night's Dream. And she has this Shakespeare in 3 steps to kind of guide you on teaching your kids Shakespeare at all ages. And so I'm really excited about that. I think they will really enjoy it, and it will be a great intro building upon what we learned this school year, just reading the stories. They'll actually be diving in and reading the plays. So I think they'll really enjoy it. I already talked about this a little bit, but we will be continuing with our weekly illustrated / written narration. So basically, every week my kids do on some watercolor paper. We haven't actually used watercolor to paint them. I just realized they usually just use crayons or markers, but every week they pick something from our current Narnia series and they draw it and then they write about it. My oldest writes on her own. My current first grader, she will tell me what she wants to write. I will write it and she'll just copy it down. So it's kind of like copy work for her. And then obviously as their skills get better, we'll increase and make it a little bit more challenging. But I plan to continue to do this as well. So we're practicing writing a little bit more, and it's just a really fun keepsake too to see how far they've come. So we will either do this for their literature readings or their history readings. And maybe I'll just let them pick each week. I haven't really decided that yet. And then for science, I haven't fully decided yet, probably because I'm working on some science curricula in my head right now. I haven't actually sat down to finish I have one that I started last year that I will be finishing this year, and then I have another one in mind. But I last year made Seashore Science, which is based on the Thornton Burgess Seashore book. And so it's taking a living book and pulling the science out of that and adding other resources to really get to know the science, and there's activities and stuff as well. So it's a very Charlotte Mason approach to science, but like Simply Charlotte Mason, this also kind of holds your hand. So there's two different schedules. One, if you're gonna do it twice a week for 20 weeks, or if you're gonna do it 4 days a week for 10 weeks. Like if you want to do this over the summer and do a summer school day, as I call it, you can do it that way. But I'm gonna make more of these very similar to this, where you're taking living books, but then you're adding some extra resources and activities to really help you understand the science. But I just kind of want to show you guys this so you know kind of where I'm going with science. So this one was great. There's a living picture book every single day for each lesson. There's like an activity every 2 lessons, but some are bonus activities you don't have to do, and some I would recommend you do. And then there's notebooking. So there's different notebooks for each age. So for example, like this is for beginning writers. This is what she was kindergartner then, hermit crabs. There's ones for the really little kids, like preschoolers, kindergartners, where they can just color a picture of whatever we learned that lesson, and then you can write for them. And then there's also ones for older students where they will just draw something they learned about and then write about it here. So very Charlotte Mason, they kind of just take what stood out to them for that lesson, and then they can do the student workbooks and the activities and all that stuff. There's videos as well every lesson to help understand each of the different animals you're reading about, or different living creatures and things, features of the seashore. So I'm gonna be making more science curricula very similar to that. And I plan to do one of those next year. I just don't have it to show you guys yet, so I want to show you Seashore Science so you can kind of understand where I'm coming. But that's a great one if you're looking for something to do this spring, summer, fall. I mean, you could do it over the winter too, especially if you're like in a different country and our winter is your summer. So keep that in mind if you're looking for something Charlotte Mason that's also family style for science. That's a really good option, and I'll have more in my shop, so stay tuned for that. Another feature of science is doing nature study. Definitely is still a version of science, but it's kind of its own classification. So we will be continuing nature study. We have not been great about it. I plan to do a lot of this over the spring and summer and fall, because winter in Minnesota, there's not a whole lot of nature to really observe. But I do want to be very intentional this time about like picking a tree in our neighborhood or somewhere, and a bush and a flower, and drawing it and observing it during each season, if it's available each season, and then learning about it too. So we have the handbook of nature study. I want to utilize this more, and so that's kind of my plan. I don't plan to be too like specific about what we're actually observing, besides like one tree, one flower, maybe one bush or something like that, or maybe like one area we will observe and draw every season. Other than that, we'll be doing more hikes as my baby's a little bit older and the weather gets nicer. So we'll be doing nature study for that, and then just as it happens, we'll do it. I'm not going to be super like fixated on getting one in every single week. That would be awesome, but this is kind of one that when we fit it in, great, and if not, we save it for the really warm months. Art is another family subject that I'm kind of torn on. I've really loved what we've used this year, and we've taken a bit of a break having a new baby, and so we'll definitely have more lessons to do, which I might just carry into next year. And that is using Living Art Lessons by Master Books. I've really loved this. We've done some fun projects, like this is when we were learning about Picasso. So we made our own like creature using different lines and things like that. And it's just learning different elements of art. And so I think we probably will just continue with this next year, because we did not, I mean, we got pretty far, about, I don't know, not quite half, but we could carry that on next year. Another thing I was looking into was like a subscription service, either for like online videos for art, or I found like some cool subscription boxes for homeschool art where they send you the stuff and it has everything you need. I thought that would be really fun, since I am not artistically inclined in that way. to kind of add to our homeschool, and I think my kids would absolutely love that. And it would just, first of all, if I'm paying for it every month, I'm gonna make sure we do it, which is dumb but true. And so that might be one way we go. I'll link a couple of those in the description so you guys can know which ones I'm talking about, but I haven't really decided. I would love to know what you guys do for art. My kids are doing like watercoloring and painting and crafting on their own all of the time. I have very artistic kids, but as far as like learning about art and being taught art, I haven't been great about that. We do go to co-op every other week, and we've been learning watercolor this year, so I feel like that's plenty. On top of them just experimenting on their own. However, I would love to do a little bit more in that area. So I've really just enjoyed these pretty inexpensive Spectrum handwriting books from, I just find them on Amazon. I may just even rebuy the same ones. I haven't checked if they have like a next volume, because they're just practicing handwriting over and over again. I don't think it's like rocket science. So we may just do the same ones over again, or I'll look for something similar but different than what they did this year. So my second grader will continue, she'll be in second grade, she will continue with just plain manuscript handwriting. And then my fifth grader will continue with cursive, since she is doing a lot of print. And she may switch to cursive for the other ones. She hasn't really shown the urge to do that. I might have her do that next year, but for sure I want her practicing cursive as well. And I guess if she starts doing those in cursive, I might switch this to print just to cover both of our bases. Okay, for language arts, this is something where we're doing things very differently than we've done in the past. We did the good and the beautiful every year until this year. And I guess I stopped midway through with my second born last year, because it's just not my favorite, and I don't really want to be using a Mormon company anymore, which I'll talk about in a second when I talk about math. But also I just felt like with language arts, they were just adding so much extra in that we don't need. We didn't need poetry because we're already learning poetry. We didn't need recitation. That's something that I didn't talk about, but we add in on our own. And they add in some art here and there, and it's just stuff we didn't really need. Plus, I just felt like with my oldest daughter, it was just so focused on the rules almost too much that it got really confusing for her. And I know that can work really well for some kids, but I just find having simple rules and practicing those a lot over and over again has worked really well for my second born. And we've done that with Explode the Code. There's like no fluff in this. It's literally just reading, writing, sounding out words over and over again. You learn the rule, then you master it, then you add on a new rule. And I just find that this approach has worked really well. She's almost to book 5, and there are 8 books. And so she'll probably finish book 5 this year. We might jump into book 6 over the summer. So I'm guessing she'll be done with the whole series by Christmas of second grade. And so that's really great, I think, to be a solid reader by then. Some kids pick up on it faster, some slower. There's no competition when it comes to this. But she's just really getting to that point now of like looking at words and reading them and not always having to sound stuff out. And she's starting to gain confidence and do some pretty early chapter books. So we'll just keep trucking along, and after that, her main language arts will be just reading a lot until she gets a little bit older, and we'll add in some grammar. I'm really adopting the Charlotte Mason methodology now that I've had a little bit more time to talk to other moms and to read her teachings, Charlotte Mason's teachings on this. I'm just trusting the process, and you know, from what I've seen from my older daughter, it is working. It just takes time, like all things. And so I'm just gonna give her another year or like half a year at least before introducing grammar, so that she can just really build her reading skills and her comprehension and all of those things. My current 4th grader, who will be in 5th grade next year, we stopped doing the good and the beautiful at the end of last school year, and this year we've been using learning language arts through literature, which I did like, but still wasn't my favorite and wasn't fully in line with Charlotte Mason. It was definitely more in line than the good and the beautiful, but not fully. And so I decided to just go full throttle with simply Charlotte Mason's language arts curriculum. So we have Using Language Well, which is the grammar that goes along with Spelling Wisdom, which helps teach spelling. And basically, It's very straightforward. It's very simple, simply Charlotte Mason. So she'll be memorizing passages, looking at the words that she doesn't know how to spell and picturing them in her mind until she can write these perfectly. And so we'll see how it goes. They start out a lot more simple and get harder over time. So I'm hoping she'll be up to it. We will see. And if not, we can go to, this is book 2. So we could go back to book 1 if needed. But as far as grammar, she's really good at the grammar, the parts of speech, the punctuation. It's more the spelling that is a little bit hard for her. But I think having this new way of teaching spelling will hopefully help. I just am a natural speller. I've always pictured words in my mind. So this is all new for me, having somebody who doesn't really do that or doesn't do it yet. I think this will kind of teach her to do that. It's kind of the idea they're gonna picture it in their mind and memorize it so that the picture is accurate, and then it will just come naturally out of their hand when they're writing. But the lessons are very simple when it comes to grammar. We'll be correcting sentences, we'll doing parts of speech and things like that, but I'm excited for this. It's just very different, not very different but that part is very similar to learning language arts through literature if we just don't add in a lot of writing things like that one did. Because the idea is you get really good at writing and you learn your own voice through narration, and then when you get a little older and more experience with spelling and dictation and things like that, then that's when you learn more formal writing. And I do believe it will work. It's just trusting the process. My oldest daughter will also continue typing with typingclub.com. It's free, you can pay for it as well, but it's worked really well for her to learn typing. She's gotten really good at it, and I haven't had to help at all, which is a great independent subject she can do totally on her own. I love when we can have a couple subjects like that, because it's literally just her typing, and it tells her if she types it wrong, and it tells her like things to think about for as far as finger placement and stuff like that. But I also learned playing Mavis Beacon, so I think typing's a great one to just hand off to your kid if you can. And then lastly is math. So I did say we're not using the Good and the Beautiful for language arts. This will be our last year of using the Good and the Beautiful for math. I've had a big change of heart since I bought these, and it was past the window to return them, so I'm just gonna stick with it for this year. I do love their math program, so it has really nothing to do with like the quality and how well my kids did with it, and has a lot more to do with affiliating and buying from a faith that I think is steering people in the wrong direction. And so I've had some people in my life and online talk about, you know, if you know a certain curriculum is affiliated with a certain church, and if you don't agree with that church and they're spreading a gospel that's very anti the actual Christian gospel, you don't want to be giving them your money, because then they're going to tithe to the church. And that's not something I really thought about before. I just thought if they're putting in, you know, Mormon messages, then I definitely don't want it. But math, I hadn't really noticed that at all. But now, next year we will be switching, but since I had already bought it after I made that decision and it was too late to return, they have a pretty strict return policy and it was past the window, we're just gonna stick with it for this year. So I do love it, but I'm not gonna like sing its praises, because we aren't gonna do it in the future. But I do, if you guys know a math curriculum, I know we'll probably do like Math UC was the one I was considering, or Beast Academy. But I wish there was like this exact thing, but it wasn't Mormon, or made by people who are Mormon. Anyway, so yes, we will be doing that for both ages, level 2 for my 2nd grader, level 5 for my 5th grader, and we'll keep trucking along with math. And yeah, I don't know if that was helpful, since we're not going to use it after this. Since I do have other kids, I thought it would be helpful to talk about what I'm doing for preschool for she will be 5, like 5 days before the school year starts. So if we were enrolled in public school, I would wait another year before kindergarten for her. I just think she's still very young. She can have a whole other year to grow. So we're not doing any formal lessons. That's not the plan, at least for this year. She did do preschool this year, mainly to make friends and just so that she can be off doing stuff at her grade level while I'm doing like a little harder things like science and art and stuff like that with my older kids. But we decided not to have her do preschool, at least when I'm filming this video, that's the choice we've made, because all of our local preschools have gone to either a couple full days or 4 to 5 like half days. And I just only wanted her to go like 3 days at the max, but probably just 2. And so I don't really want to pay for 4 or 5 days or 2 full days if I only want her to go like 2.5 hours twice a week. It just seems like a waste of our money, and also like the benefit wasn't really worth the cost, because we are still very involved with a lot of other people, and I was really only having her go to make friends and to be with other kids her own age. But we have co-op and we have church, and we're involved in a lot of other things where she can get that as well. And so we're just not going to do preschool for her second preschool year. If she is showing signs like she wants to start reading, which she kind of is right now, she knows all her letters, she knows all her numbers, shapes, all of those things, like she is kindergarten ready in that way. But I really just want her to play and grow and learn through a lot of books we read together, and being out in nature and just playing around the house and helping with things around the house. But if she is starting to show that, I do, I can get Explode the Code for her. We do have one of the first ones, which is kind of easy for her now. So I might buy additional ones as far as that, but I don't plan to push much like formal academics on her just yet, because she's still little, and I'm looking at more when she's closer to 6 to start that, when she would actually be going to school if we were enrolled in a public school. And then we have co-op every other week, and so we haven't decided yet. I help run it with my friends. We kind of just created our own homeschool co-op based on Charlotte Mason's principles, and so we haven't decided for sure what we're teaching next year, but if it's anything similar to this year or the previous years, we'll be doing a handicraft. This year it was watercolor. We've done macrame, we've done paper slide, we've done weaving in the past, so it'll be some kind of handicraft. Composer study, recitation, hymns, folk songs, narration, where they're being read a book and then they narrate. My oldest daughter did a biography, and now she's doing kind of more of like a science or Minnesota history book. And my first grader this year has just done like a fiction, like a fantasy fiction book. And so they're practicing narrating with the group, which is kind of fun. They did Swedish drill this year, which is pretty cool. And then nature study. And then the older kids have done, that my kids aren't old enough yet, but they've done like anatomy, they've done Plutarch and Latin, I believe. So those will be things hopefully we'll add in eventually. So they are getting lots of other subjects every other week as well. And then we'll plan to go on lots of hikes once my baby is a little bit bigger and it's warmer out. So I'm excited for that, to get out in nature. We do that on our off weeks of co-op. And then as far as extracurriculars, my oldest does piano. I want my second daughter to join once there's an opening. That's really why she hasn't started yet. And then my girls all do Awana, so they're learning scripture memory through Awana. So we don't do like a lot of that at home besides just reading it, practicing. And then I think we will join American Heritage Girls next year, now that my youngest daughter will be old enough to go next year. I think it'd be a really fun thing. It's something I wanted to do a couple years ago. Just with my husband's schedule, it was really hard to fit in, and then I got pregnant and just didn't want to add that to our plates this year. But I think that'll be really, really fun. We have friends that go, and so it'll be another place to build friendships and learn a lot of skills and great things, and be in community every week. And I love that they can kind of all do it together, and it's not all on separate days, which works really well for our family. And then my son can join in like 5 years when he's old enough for trail life. He can join that as well. So I think that'll be what we do next year. I have thought about gymnastics, but we haven't had a lot of classes open up in our area. So that's where we're at with extracurriculars. I'm tired. That felt like a lot. I just encourage you, if you watch these videos and you're like, wow, that is so much, write out every single thing you're doing for every subject. And I promise you, it's so much more than what you think it is. This will be our 5th year homeschooling. I did teach preschool in our home as a daycare provider, so I don't really know how to add that into our years, but I've basically been educating from our home since she was 1. So our 9th year, if we're looking at it that way. But as far as like formal homeschooling at school ages. This will be our 5th year going into next school year, and I feel like I'm really excited. I'm really adopting Charlotte Mason's principles. I've read so many books about her works, and Karen Glass has some amazing books if you want to read the volumes but you're kind of lost. Karen Glass is the woman to go to. She has a lot of great books I can link below that help walk you through Charlotte Mason's principles without a lot of the references that make the volumes hard to read in the modern times. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to update you guys on how it goes. If you've done Simply Charlotte Mason, let me know. And I would love to know what you're doing for homeschool for your kids next year. Thank you so much if you got to the end of this video. I appreciate you so much. Happy homeschooling. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.